Imagine this. You've just finished a big case. Your custody order is almost entered. Your divorce judgment has been submitted. You have distributed all the property that needs to be distributed, and support is finally being paid. You are relieved, your client is satisfied, the opposing party is happy that it's all over, and you get a call the next day. A pandemic has hit. And your client says, "We have a problem. I just got a call from my ex, and they told me that they think that they're sick and that they need to quarantine with the children." Is he telling the truth? Or does he just want extra parenting time? These are the questions that your client is asking. And then, is he in contempt? Or do we have a bigger problem? Has your case just turned upside down after all of that time and all of that money has been spent? And what remedy do you have when there are no rules in play? A pandemic has hit, and we certainly have learned how to practice law, and this is going to be a fine example of how we put that into play. No one expected in January to look at the news and see that China had been hit with this novel coronavirus. In February, when the first case in the United States was reported, I don't think anybody was prepared. In March 11th, when the news came out that there was a pandemic and it was official, everyone stopped. And I can say that it felt like everyone was scared. Everything was changing. And like I said, there were no rules. Some people remember where they sat when OJ was being chased in his white SUV. Some people will tell you they remember where they were when Obama was elected. I remember those too, but I will always remember where I was sitting when I got the email from the courthouse that said they had just closed and to stand by for further information. What about the hearings that we had that week? What about custody hearings, decisions that we were waiting on, the hearing and the trial that I had scheduled for the next week? What is the plan? How do you describe this to your client in a way that doesn't make them panic in a time where chaos was all around us? No one was prepared. And what surprised me is how COVID impacted so many different families in different ways. Already, family law is not a one-size-fits-all practice area. But if you look at an intact family and you look at the questions they have, they're all working together. But when you've got two household families and you're trying to parent in a pandemic, there's already this underlying, usually there's already this underlying problem of trust. That's probably why you're in two households and not one. But now layer on a pandemic and questions about safety, questions about whether you're going to return to school or whether school will be virtual, questions about religious services, whether you should attend, whether it should be virtual, vacations for the summer, visits with extended family or grandparents. Understanding all of the intricacies and complexities when there are two households that aren't communicating the same as an intact family may communicate was something we had never experienced in a family law practice. And I'm certain that around the globe, the feeling was the same. So the first thing we have to do is advise our clients on what motions are appropriate, and we're talking about whether you should file a claim for custody or a motion to modify, whether there's a matter of contempt, or maybe you're thinking out of the box. Have you considered assault if one party knew that they were sick and took the children anyway? Have you considered intentional infliction of emotional distress? What does your jurisdiction offer that is outside the norm? Because it's fair to say we are all acting outside of the norm right now. In the event there is discussion in your household, or there are discussions in both households about how to co-parent during this pandemic, understanding how we're handling safety, quarantine, and what level of quarantine should exist between both households, knowing whether There are other children with compromised immune systems, step parents with compromised immune systems. Those are things that we're having to consider that most certainly are not in the documents that we have all drafted, but for our custody cases. So the first thing we need to look at after we've secured our client's interest with a motion or a claim is, what does the physical custody paragraph say in your agreement or order? That physical custody, as you know, talks about the parenting schedule. We're talking about where the children lay their heads down on the pillow at night. Typically, what we're really looking at is the legal custody provision. And in a legal custody provision, that's how we make decisions for our children and what to do in the event there's an impasse. So you'll usually see language in your document that says that both parties will make a good faith attempt to agree, that if they can't agree, that they might go to a third party for help, such as a school psychologist, an academic professional, or maybe even a physician or other counselor. And then if they can't agree, who makes the decision? Does one person have a final decision-making authority? Or do they need to attend mediation, or do we just go right back to filing an action in the courtroom? So here we are. There's nothing in that document that says anything about what to do in the face of a pandemic. There's maybe no opportunity to get into a courtroom, at least not anytime soon. In particular, not only are we dealing with new cases, but now we've got an entirely new backlog of old cases. And let's just hope the judge doesn't get sick, especially if it's a judge who's been on your case for the last couple of years. So once we get through those secured claims and we talk about what's actually in the order or the agreement that you have, what if there's no document? What if mediation and arbitration are your only options? Another idea is let a third party like the school psychologist or the medical professional, the therapist or the religious advisor, let them get involved and try to help resolve the issue. Some jurisdictions across the country have parenting coordinators. I don't know if your jurisdiction has it, but it's certainly worth looking into. It's a novel idea for a novel virus. A parenting coordinator can come in, they act as a neutral, they have no confidentiality with either party, but here's what's novel about them. A parenting coordinator can actually make a temporary decision for the parties if they can't come to an agreement themselves. Whether you're an attorney, a parent, or both, we're all facing this together. Don't get caught with your mask down. Be prepared, know your options, and make a decision based on the best information you have at the time, and a decision that's in the best interest of the children and your client, regardless of how many households are involved. Thank you.